itself. So let's move on to two players that are very good at the game. We have Shaxy versus Ryvius. Both these players putting their own spin on their lineups overall. Shaxy having his Warrior banned out this time. Let me just make my adjustment because he had his Warlock banned out yesterday. And protecting his Mali Druid, yes. And Ryvius protecting his Shaman and having his Druid banned out. And I believe we are going to see the shield classes going into game number 1. So it's going to be Shaxy's Quest Mali Druid versus Ryvius' Quest Shaman.
I find the picks and bans so interesting. Honestly, I'm still having to wrap my head around it every single time, like afresh, because I remember when I was casting a lot of Conquest in last year's system in the HCT format, 90% of the time I could guess what both players were going to ban. It was usually pretty simple, right? They'd have a lineup that was very vulnerable to Quest Rogue. They'd ban Quest Rogue. They'd have a lineup that was vulnerable to aggro. They'd ban the most aggressive deck. Like they would deliberately make their lineup weak to one thing and then ban them.
Afford to.
Exactly. But this time I struggle to see the exact reasoning for the players behind their decision making as to what they pick and what they ban. Like Ryvius there shielding his Battlecry Quest Shaman. What is that especially good against? I suppose the Quest Paladin from Shaxy, he's thinking he likes that matchup. Maybe the Druid as well, he thinks it's good there, but...
Well, what's very interesting to me is he banned Warrior.
Yeah,
and he has Holy Wrath Paladin, the Quest Shaman, and then Mechathune Warrior.
Which feels like a great matchup.
And he banned Warrior.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on.
He doesn't have any aggro decks
either.
I'm
so confused. He could have banned Zoo, right?
Yeah.
I think Zoo looks way more of a reasonable ban. Anyway, we'll see if that... I don't want to question whether that was right or not, but it must be. Or we'll find out if it's not soon, but maybe that seems weird.
Yeah, maybe he didn't expect his Druid to be banned, so he thought that the Warlock would be...
I guess?
Worth leaving up. Or maybe he did, so he thought it would be worth leaving up. Yeah.
One thing I will say is, I feel like not only the format, but this meta, I feel there are so many different opinions on matchups, even just between GM pros in such a small group.
Yeah.
There's so many differences between how you play the matchup, what matchup you think is better. You know, is this better win versus that? Does that win versus this? And that's where the bans and the shields become interesting, because I think honestly, a lot of it is just player opinion or comfortableness with the deck. Maybe, you know, like I think it's just. You've got to fall back on that if you don't have the hard facts, or you can't, you know, overly prove something. But anyway, let's get into it. Both these players looking pretty good. Shaxy 3-2, Ryvius 4-1 so far in Grandmasters. Shaxy on the top on the Mali Quest Druid, and Ryvius on the bottom on the Quest Shaman.
Looking like a pretty reasonable start for both players here. Shaxy, I wonder if we'll see a turn 2 Crystal Merchant from him as well after coining out on turn 1. Or are we going to see Crystal Merchant coin on turn 2? This is a play I've been talking about. I was saying that I want to see this play more from players, and you were saying you'd never do this.
Okay, so I would maybe consider doing this if you have exactly no issue in hand.
And no Oasis Surge.
Yeah. If you have this hand, it's one of the few times that I would do it, but generally I would avoid it, and I'd not just try and accelerate.
Generally, I agree with you. Whoa.
Whoa.
Lovely lackey there for Ryvius.
I think I like the bop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, kill it off.
Get rid of it. It's just going nice and wide on the board as well. Sets up for a weaponized Wasp next turn. Like, I guess the ideal setup would be to leave the lackey in hand, but I think you're perfectly happy just to get it down and deny the card draw for a turn.
One thing that's kind of funny in this matchup, because it is different to the regular Quest Druid versus Shaman, is that Shaxy does not have to go wide on the board. So normally against Druid, the MC techs are really powerful.
Good point.
Because Druid often just has to go wide or they don't do enough.
Yeah.
But Shaxy doesn't run King Feoris, doesn't run Nomi, so it's just whatever. Doesn't care. And again, there's something we always need to keep an eye on with this deck, and maybe surprised me a little bit when I first started playing a lot of it, was sometimes Mali Moonfire just kills you.
It absolutely
and you don't even have to do anything crazy.
However, if it is going to kill him, it's going to have to do it very fast with Octosari coming off of the Mogu Flesh Shaper. More like Pogu Flesh Shaper.
It's going to be the quickest stealth poisonous I've ever seen. With the Loti coming down.
He can bounce it back to protect it!
Oh,
10-10 Octasari. Dekasari.
No card draw. Sorry.
Thus named because it decks you rather than drawing 10 cards.
Wow, this is quite aggressive.
Yeah, in all seriousness, I much prefer
An 8/8.
just getting the 8 damage through to face and then drawing 8 cards thereafter.
And
the heck?
If you tuned in yesterday, I had a very brief mention of Mogu into Mutate being the core of the deck outside of the quest.
Yep.
And it's just true because you can just win games. Is this just I feel like we're making some kind of pizza with this cast today. It's just but it's like four cheese pizza going on right now because every single game we cast is like, and he cheeses him.
Yeah, I mean, I was wondering if this is ever bad, but it's just really good for Ryvius.
Oh yeah, but
unless he overdraws very specific cards.
Yeah, those two are fine.
Those are fine, yeah. Losing a mind control tank is not that bad.
And losing the Quest Explorer is just fine.
It's nothing at this point. Former champ Mutate is kind of what I'm looking at first glance. It doesn't spend all the mana, of course, which with 10 cards in hand you definitely want to try and do, but what else is there, right? Rat and then Life Drinker.
I'm confused.
Yeah, I don't want to see Bog Slosher in this turn. That feels very, very slow. Doesn't it? I guess if you're bouncing back damage,
the weird part is I didn't know what his play was if he didn't get actually deal 2 damage Lackey.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, if he got any other card
because it's an
from the
Oasis
Cable
Surger
Rat.
Turn. On turn 6, right? I think Shaxy's play is very clearly indicated he did not have an Oasis Surger in hand. So I think the only thing you're afraid of is hidden Oasis. And therefore, I wanted to see the biggest board being generated as possible, which came in the form of former champ Mutate. Like, you could argue he wants to save it for a double former champ this turn, or a double battle cry activation, which is reasonable.
I actually think he just goes Life Drink and Bounce this turn.
No hero power push at all. I don't know if I like that. I think that's too passive on the board and starts to run into being afraid of Starfall and then you're falling behind on the board.
But then what if you just kill them in 2 turns?
But what if you don't? What if they have the heal? Do you really want to go all in on them losing?
Well, Shaxy only runs 1 hit. Oasis.
Oh, okay.
So, and then yes, there's Ferocious Howl, of course, but
I think 20 damage is quite a lot to ask, though. Earthshock will take target it with a spell. PogChamp.
That's some kind of joke.
Yeah, my attempt at one at least.
So, Shaxy can get rid of 2 of these. Can't do much else though, which feels kind of bad.
If he were to go Nourish, he'd have 3 mana left over, which there's not much you can hit on that, yeah.
You would have to just like Nourish Ferocious Howl just for the armor and kind of negate part of this turn's damage, I guess. But now this is starting to look spicy. This push from Ryvius along with Life Drinker into with Hero Power or just Bog Slosher.
Yeah.
Because then you can Life Drinker Hero Power the next turn, then you can Shudder Walk, which does the Hero Power, which does the Life Drinker twice again, and so on and so on.
Well, I mean, Ryvius is not far off from just lethal, because if he was to go Hero Power, Lackey, Bounce it, Lackey, that's 8 more damage. Getting pretty scary for Shaxy at that point. Especially as that would generate another 5/5 and a 3/3. Yeah, I like this turn from Ryvius. Because this does the double pronged attack, damage face to force them to heal, and board presence. Okay, I guess he doesn't have to bounce back, but
He can still bounce.
oh, yeah.
He can still bounce and replay. No problem at all. How much value do you want, Ryvius?
Yeah. I really want to see the bounce back of the Kobold Lackey here.
Agreed.
He's counting up, of course. You know, if there's double Ferocious Howl, what can go wrong if he discovers a hidden Oasis off of the Worthy Expedition? But I think this does... It still makes a big board, right?
Well, he can do the turn next turn right now because he got the second Kobold. So even if the board's cleaned up, he can just
He can then bounce
win.
Kobold. Yeah. Or bounce the life drinker even.
Yep.
Either way, I think this ends up with a slightly smaller board than the other way, which is why I preferred going for the other line of play. But the difference, I think, is mostly negligible.
And also as well, this gets more in the pool for Shudderwalk, as in more guaranteed damage.
Yeah.
So there's Starfall going to come down. He does get the Anubis after the Defender, but honestly, although this looks very one-sided, it's one-sided because Ryvius had an 8/8 that drew a million cards that he shouldn't have been allowed to have. And that's just his edge game. If he Earth Shocks, pushes 6, pushes his opponent to 6, and he can just bounce and Hero Power, replay the... Oh, no, he doesn't have the mana. But he can push... Yeah, because
no,
you can do it with the Life. Yeah. I was looking at the Life Drinker, but you can do it with the Life. Yeah.
Right you are.
Woo. Alrighty then.
To Ryvius. These Quest Charmers today have been dominating. Very, very aggressive at the start.
It's crazy, isn't it? I don't know, it's just, again, pros have been saying that it's the Mogu that's actually the powerhouse in the deck. And I can't blame it. I can't blame that opinion because I feel like the most broken things you do is mutate that Mogu. And you've got to imagine the deck, even against aggro, without that card.
Yeah.
Like without Mogu, you have not only a powerhouse card in terms of what we just saw, you just get a big drop, like an 8-drop, out of nowhere, but you also, it's such a good defensive tool because normally if you're getting rushed down by aggro, which the deck suffers against, you have like a 0 mana 3/4 with rush that maybe you also can mutate anyway. So it's such a defensive and aggressive card. I feel like without it, the deck would be significantly weaker, even though it has nothing to do with the quest whatsoever.
Yeah, I think it's just a good recognition, because in a way it kind of does have something to do with the quest, because you're playing a bunch of battle crime minions which inherently have lower stats,
True.
so then you can mutate them up. Yeah, I think it's a good recognition, and even though there have been some calls, I think, for taking it out, I've seen from some players, I think in a Druid heavy meta, it's just absolutely core at the moment.
Something would have to be crazy for me to take Mogu out of the deck. It's so good. But anyway, that was just game number 1. We're going to step away just for a second while we set up game number 2, and maybe there's even more cheese on the way. Stay tuned to find out.
Wait. We're still doing another one of these? Even with the plagues out there? All right. Greetings, Junior Explorers. Are you ready for adventure? I sure hope so. I'm Ryan Collins, and I'm here to send you out into the Tombs of Terror. The Tombs of Terror sound completely and utterly horrifying, but you're gonna be totally 100% fine. I'm not going though, no way. You may have heard about those nasty plagues in Old Doom. What you may not know is that the League of Evil unleashed them to destroy the world, and in the process, let loose some seriously mighty mystical beings. And that's where you come in. Tombs of Terror will follow the format of previous Build As You Go adventures. You'll be fighting a series of random encounters and improving your deck as you go with more cards and fantastical treasures. Not only that, but you'll be accompanying the best of the best. That's right, Rand Bronzebeard, Elise Starseeker, Reno Jackson, and Sir Finley Mergleton, they're back. And these legendary explorers have a few new tricks in their wide-brimmed hats. For this momentous occasion, each of the 4 explorers are dual-class heroes, fully representing the strengths of 2 distinct classes at once. For example, with Reno's recent experience with magical artifacts, magic! He's able to sling spells as a mage and use some of his old tricks as a rogue. You'll be able to build your deck with cards from both classes, creating new and exciting combos as you go. Want to deliver a massive Druid swipe into your opponent's face with Prophet Velen in play? How about activating rogue combo cards with mage spells? Deck building rules are out the window. Again, with the League of Explorers by your side, I can 110% guarantee that you will be totally fine. Early reports have informed us there's even a nice tavern out there in Old Doom where you can relax, modify your deck. I'm not sure who would be running a tavern during such chaos.
Nice.
At the start of your adventure, you'll get to make another choice to help shape your deck. You'll still choose a starting deck and hero power, but now you'll also have your own collection of signature treasures for each hero. Signature treasures are special cards suited to each explorer that you'll be able to unlock as you play. As you progress, you'll unlock even more powerful signature treasures, giving you a steady flow of new options. So while Reno Jackson may start off with his trusty hat, he'll eventually end up with the Gatling Wand, a powerful instrument of magical might. You may find that some signature treasures are better suited to your playstyle than others, and that's part of the fun too. With your group of explorers fully equipped and ready for action, Tombs of Terror will bring you through 4 chapters of tomb diving goodness. You'll fight a wide assortment of villains, mummies, a bunch of water-toting murlocs. But you're really here to take down these Plague Lords. Plague Lords are the physical embodiments of each of the plagues. They range from a monster made entirely of murlocs to a living form of rage itself. These are huge enemies to tackle with enormous health pools. As they take damage, the Plague Lord will change phases, switching hero powers and strategies to become even deadlier. You might be worried about your chances, but I assure you, you'll be safe. Not only are you a well-trained explorer with cutting-edge equipment, but Plague Lords actually have persistent health pools. So if you show up, go face for 100 or 200 damage, and then get smashed, don't worry. The next time you fight that Plague Lord, that damage will still apply, allowing you to whittle them down if you need to. Although Plague Lords are the purest embodiment of evil we've ever encountered, we're certain that... Look, I can't do this. These guys are doomed. Get out while you can. It's not gonna work. But no, you'll be fine. Everything's fine here. Once you defeat all 4 chapters, you unlock the finale, which is a delightful mystery. Good luck out there, explorers. And if you manage to get yourself mummified or worse, please don't come back for me.
We've got another exciting matchup coming right up for you guys now, and it is going to be the Malygos Druid from Shaxy versus the Holy Wrath Paladin from Ryvius. And Shaxy already took this matchup
he did
this weekend once, so can he do it again, Darren?
I think that was a little bit of an anomaly, it would be fair to say, with Bloodshell making what was, in my opinion, I think we can both agree, a bit of a misplay at the end of that game where he had a 66.6% repeat, of course, chance to win the game with a Holy Wrath, shuffle in your Shavala, where 2 of the remaining 3 cards were Shavala and he could have got double Holy Wrath. A little bit complicated. Basically, 2 out of 3 times he would have won the game. He opted not to take that chance, thinking he could get a 100% next turn, which was quite clearly an erroneous conclusion to come to, and therefore he ended up losing the game.
Yeah, and the biggest deal for me was it wasn't not going for a slightly risky win. For me, it was not going for the win when there was pretty decent information that he was dead next turn. I think that was the trick. It's like,
yes.
I felt it felt quite clear that Shaxy was in a position to just kill him, and he didn't go for it, and I think he, because of that, at least, I won't even say hunch. I feel like it would have been more than a hunch that Shaxy had the damage ready because he just played the Malygos down. Yeah, I think he should have gone for it.
It was more complicated than that, because it wasn't that he died. It was because he played timeout into the Malygos. The problem was he knew that Shaxy likely would be able to heal out of range of the 25 was the problem. But I think he made the read that because Malygos was played, healing wasn't in hand, which was not the case. Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, you could argue it was a misplay from Shaxy as well to not heal up the turn prior to get out of range. It got very, very complicated.
Yeah, it's where like weird mind games happen, right? Because I would have actually been scared of dying, which would have made timeout sound okay. But I also think actually just killing your opponent, it stops it most of the time, especially because the chance was so good. But anyway, that's in the past. Let's live in the present for now at least. Shaxy versus Ryvius. Shaxy again on this Mali Druid. And Ryvius, I think actually has a lot of experience with this deck, so we'll see how he approaches this matchup.
Very Ryvius style of deck. He's one of these players who, you know, he's almost famous, I think, at this point for the weird OTK kind of decks, be it Mechathune, be it Holy Wrath OTK, things like that. Something just seems to click for him with these kind of decks. Very strong combo player.
He doesn't normally play decks that just hit you in the face and win.
He doesn't.
I don't think I've ever seen Ryvius play Hunter.
Maybe Malygos Hunter, he'd consider it.
If you're listening to watch the VOD Ryvius, I've got a deck list if you want it. So far though, Shaxy having hold of the Hidden Oasis now, ×2, is actually pretty sick.
That's an excellent
did he discovered that, right?
Yes,
because
he's
the
only
Expedition.
Yeah, which is a very big point, because what we've seen, I think, pretty consistently this matchup come down to, because again, with limited card generation in both decks, you can expect a fairly similar game each time. at least in terms of the outcomes you can expect. You can change your decision making. But generally, it feels like 2 Holy Wraths is what you need to be able to deliver lethal.
Yes, because it's not a surprise to Shaxy that you Holy Wrath for 25. It's, you know, it's very well known now. Both players know what they're doing, and this is a very, very good start for Shaxy right now. Sorry for this gigantic celiac. Yeah, there we go. But the fact that Shaxy's drawn so many cards already is pretty good. And of course, Ryvius has drawn a lot of cards. Shaxy's drawn all these cards before he's even played a Nourish.
True.
Like, this is actually pretty nuts. And having Surgeon to drop out, then there's Ferocious Howl on demand with such a big hand size is huge. Along with double Oasis is... okay. This is a spicy game. They're playing Lightning as well.
I mean, there's a lot more that makes it even more spicy in this matchup. The fact that Ryvius has already got a 2-mana Holy Wrath allows him to go for the play of, as we saw in the previous matchup with Blood Trail, Shavala Shuffle and then double Holy Wrath for 2 chances to hit it. It could be a very different experience because Blood Trail, if you remember in the last series, sorry to keep coming back to it, he dealt a lot of damage to the Druid at the start of the game.
Yes.
Ryvius has not done that. Shaxy is effectively at full health here.
Excuse me, sorry.
And now Shaxy just throwing away a Moonfire purely for space in hand.
And it's doable because... oh, that was Mali.
Yeah.
Shaxy, calm down. You could have played around that as well, right?
How?
Oh, no, he couldn't. But anyway, he can do that because, 1, you can reduce Mali, which means swipes become available with Malygos. 2, that 1 Moonfire can become 3, 4. If Shaxy really wants it to and has the time, he won't have the time probably with this game, but even if he makes it 2, well, he's back up to 2 Moonfires. That's great.
Ryvius carrying on doing what this deck does best. I mean, it is turn 7 and he's got like 9 cards left in deck. Or if he'd swung there.
What's really funny that turn is Shaxy actually, for all Ryvius knew, was set up lethal. Because he could have Mali, oh, maybe with 1 Moonfire gun he couldn't. But like Mali, you got to think, with the damage on board, Mali Moonfire pounce is getting close to actually just killing them with the minions on board. Yeah. So it's some of the Ryvius you have to constantly be aware of.
Which can lead the player of weak will to go for timeouts before they're necessary.
Yes.
It's a big game of chicken in parts in this matchup, I think.
Something I talk about a lot is timeout timing. Wins and loses games.
Yeah.
It really does. I think it's one of the most impactful cards of the whole deck.
Oh man, both players have drawn so many cards.
Oh, yeah.
This is like the dream for both players. Crystology on 1, the Prismatic Lens, all the draw cards for Ryvius.
It's a dream for both casters too. No hanging around
It's
in this
true,
game.
Yeah. Full throttle.
And I think this shows as well how comfortable both players are with these decks. Is Asia Pacific generally plays quite quickly anyway, but these 2 players are playing Lightning because they just both know how the matchup goes. They both know what they need to do. They both know how to react. They both know how to move forward in the game. And now, the biggest problem Shaxy has is emptying some of his hand.
That's exactly right. With an active Elise, he definitely wants to try and move towards playing that, of course, to start duplicating these this Moonfire.
What if he just, like, loaties?
I'm looking at Oasis Surge Loti on this turn just to clear some stuff out of hand.
Oh, what if he goes for Ultimate Omega Mind Games? Oh, Hidden Oasis, Loti, and you play the one that's from your deck, and then you hold the one that you've generated because Ryvius will think it doesn't have it. That's just going far too far and too dangerous because you could still die.
I think that's something that will definitely come into play.
Yeah.
Not right now. Find your opportune moment to debate your opponent.
One thing that probably doesn't happen in this game is the Florist Dream Petal coming down for any real impact because I think it's too slow.
I hope you like my invention.
Zephyrus active as well. Are there even any cards left to be drawn with that? Thalnos has been played. 2 Novices, I think. Soup Vendor. I've got a feeling that might be a dead Crystology. Which isn't to say it's totally dead. It's fine to just get it out your hand.
Sometimes
just to
you
play
want
it.
that card.
Yeah, it's fair.
1 mana, delete a card from your hand in a deck that draws so much.
Not
Okay,
that
I'll take
bad,
it.
yeah.
1 mana, make some room. And this, we saw lightning fast early game. This is where it starts to get a little bit dicey.
Is it
Because-
timeout time?
Well, one misstep, and either player could lose.
Yeah.
Just out of nowhere, because that's how both decks operate. So this is where Ryvius has to think, and I think if Ryvius can avoid it, he should time out. But I think,
Man, that's so brave. I mean, obviously he doesn't die. I think it's impossible for Shaxy to deal the 12 damage without
it is.
the other Moonfire, because he's already used one of them.
And, he's,
But-
and remember, he burnt a pounce too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, he's played both pounces now. I believe he's burnt one and played one. But just taking 10 damage is almost worth a timeout, I would say.
I think it's okay to pass, because you can take 10, and then you time out next turn,
Yeah.
which buys you another turn to do stuff and makes Shavala cheaper, and so on. So I think the longer you can hold off, if you are guaranteed not dead, the better.
Fair enough.
And the problem that Shaxy has here, it must be hurting his soul, is that he doesn't have Floop yet. If he had Floop, like, this
True.
game would be
Yeah,
over.
that's a good
Because he
point.
would have just played Mally.
And then go Flute, swipe, Moonfire.
But now Ryvius cannot just say he isn't dead. Ryvius could easily be dead next turn.
Defensive maneuvers have to come in here.
What are those maneuvers, though?
So Zephyrus is always something you have to consider at this point, but something I've found in my experience is that just an Oasis Surger is really annoying for Zephyrus to deal with. There's no good card against 2 5/5s.
Yeah, you're right.
It's like,
Does it give you like
Twisting
explosive shot?
maybe, I don't know. But I think for the moment, while you can consider Zephyrus, it's probably not what you want to go for. Oh, now it would offer explosive shot, probably. So that makes more sense. Yeah.
Oh, no, as well. Holy Fire was one of the cards that was fixed, right?
So it's offered more,
Yeah, Holy Fire, Avenging Wrath. There was one more.
like Blessed Champions.
Yeah, Blessed Champion. Yeah. Oh, the Paladin.
Power.
Plus a priest card, of course. But still, when you think like Paladin class cards kind of nerfed by Zephyrus.
Yeah.
Well, now.
Oh! The hit on the Malagos. This is starting to look juicy for Shaxy, but at the same time, Ryvius has 2 timeouts. He has a cheaper Holy Wrath.
If there's ever a time to play timeout, it's when you've just seen the Florist come down. The Florist means business. Making the, doing the plant work is just a side gig. The Florist is basically like a hitman. They have like a day job that they pretend to do, which is, just plants, when really you visit the Florist if you want someone cleaned up.
Well, it's like a Grim Fandango, right? You get sprouted. Florist, you haven't played Grim Fandango? Oh.
I know of it, I have not.
The gimmick is like they're skeletons, so they can't die, so you get sprouted, which is like you get flowers grow.
Oh, okay.
Very good.
Yeah, I know it's like a cult classic.
Crazy. Classic.
Then there's some heal from the Shavala. There is one in the deck now, but there is also Mally Swipe Moonfire available.
Is this lethal? That's 14, 11. Just 25. It's just lethal. It's just lethal. I'd almost forgotten what Malagos and Floop can do from my old days of playing the
And the best part is,
Malagos.
that's not even the busted bit.
That's not even the really busted
Remember,
bit.
Shaxy threw away a Moonfire, burnt a Pounce, didn't play Elise.
Yeah.
The deck's insane!
And
I love it so much.
You have to wonder at this point for Ryvius, when you end the game against Malagos Druid with 2 timeouts in hand, something's gone wrong, right?
I think for me, I liked him holding the timeouts as long as he did.
Really?
But I think when the Dream Petal comes down, you press that timeout button, because that's when you are like
Fair.
so likely to die, because it could even have been death. I guess it depends what was in hand.
Yeah.
But even if it hit Floop, the outcome isn't the same, but could be close. If it hits Elise, that opens up to some huge problems as well.
Yeah.
But I think he could have played timeout that turn and waited, and maybe just gone for the big Shavala turns with timeouts after.
I think I actually disagree with you in both cases. I think the early instance
Most
where the
people
two
do that.
5/5s were on the board was the time to go for it, because you just want to deny the 10 damage and keep drawing. And then later on, he had to take the risk there and clear the board, because that damage is on board every single turn. And when your opponent has like 40 health, I think it was at that point, or some very high health total, you need to start making those risks, I think, because you don't have the time to go for a double OTK later on.
Yeah, it's really tough, isn't it? Because for me, I feel like if you hold on to them as long as possible, and then if you can get them to the point where you time out and then Holy Wrath, and then can time out and then Holy Wrath, or time out Holy Wrath, pass, whatever.
Yes.
You can basically you use the timeouts to make yourself unkillable while you do your kill. Is obviously the best usage of the cards in general for more guaranteed wins. The problem I had was it's hard to use a timeout when you know you're never dead, and when you run heal in the deck. So it's like, well, you hit me for 10. If I then time out and heal, well, it doesn't. Nothing's changed apart from I've used cards and progressed deeper into my deck. So I think I would have liked that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's done. The Mali Druid did its job, makes me happy. So we'll see what happens in game number 3, decided game between these two players. And again, this is a big one. Either Ryvius goes 4-2 and Shaxy goes 4-2, or Ryvius strides ahead at 5-1 score and Shaxy kind of just sits in the middle of things.
5-1 is a very Ryvius score, I would say, with one of the highest, I think the second highest Asia-Pacific points earner for last year. Obviously a different system to what we have here with Grandmasters. But it just clearly shows how dedicated of a player he was. Because it was even more impressive than that in a way, if you look at it that way, because he was much more active towards the start of the year, last year, in the HCT system. Honestly, he kind of trailed off towards the end of the year, which you could argue makes it less impressive because he wasn't as consistent over the whole year. But you could argue it was more impressive because he earned that many points in a shorter space of time than everyone else did.
And I think what's important as well is, generally speaking, the players from the Asia-Pacific region do not travel, or did not travel, to as many tour stops, because a lot of the tour stops were very Europe and Americas based. And generally you have Europe travel to America quite often. I think the Europeans actually travel the most, generally speaking, and then Americas travel, wherever.
Right.
But a lot of the time, you wouldn't see these players at I'll say foreign events, as in foreign of outside of Asia Pacific, and that's a big detriment, right? If your opponents literally go to more tournaments, they generally will earn more points. That's how it works. So it was very impressive. I think I'm on the impressed side of Ryvius' performance last year.
I mean, there's a reason why Hunter Ace, Saiyan, and Psycho had so many points last year. They were at literally every tour stop.
Yeah.
As well as finishing top 25 literally every season as well.
I look at Casey as well, right? Like, Casey was just there.
Yeah.
Just a regular.
It's a good description of Casey. He's always just there. All right, Kevin.
I do like Casey a lot.
Me too. But in this particular game, it does look like, as is often expected in the matchup, the Warlock is pulling ahead. The Zoo is the early board dominating class, but not to the extent that you might expect. Ryvius has drawn a lot of his early tempo plays, and is playing in a way that you don't often play in the matchup. At least in the olden days, when equality was 2, this was more so the case, where you just go for a big sweeping board clear to try and empty the board, and then you follow up with your draw, your healing, and you lock out the game that way. Ryvius here has gone with a very different approach to the game, which I quite like given the context of his hand, which is just contest the board.
It's playstyle.
Yeah, that's why it's in your deck.
Yeah, and also as well, this matchup gets a little bit weird because sometimes the Warlock can just make a board out of nowhere, and it's not a board of little minions that's going to get cleaned up by Consecrate. Look at the sheer power of the Neverset Thrasher. Look at the sheer power of Vulture that makes 3 drops that on average, I think the average 3 drop does not die to Consecrate. I have 2 health. And also Shaxy is running Leroy in his deck. No Soulfires, but just having Leroy to just go boom, extra push. There's 2 Cable Rats in his deck. There's to generate lackeys. There's the Grim Rally for the wideboard buff that again can be, tons of extra damage out of nowhere.
Let me think.
So both players kind of have to dance a little bit around what's going on.
Really tough decision here for Ryvius, because if he knew that there were no cards that manipulated the stats of the minion on Shaxy's side of the board, I think it would be a pretty easy, equip True Silver and pass, because then you can go Consecration Swing next turn. But I think, he needs to consider all kinds of things. Lackeys, Grim Rally, Vulture that could come down next turn. and therefore I think it's very possibly a true silver and swing turn into the 1-2, just to set up for a consecration and kill next turn.
I think you still true silver pass. Because I think...
If Grim Rally
would've-
comes down,
I would've
this
made
goes
this play.
so bad.
I would have made this play.
Okay.
Because I feel like Ziliax covers your bad outcomes.
But then, what are you doing with Ziliax? Like, if there's an Neverset Thrasher in play, are you swinging into the 1-2 then, or are you Ziliaxing into the 1-2? What is your true silver?
I mean, so much of it depends on what comes out. Because
Of course.
True Silver can kill pretty much any other minion that gets played this turn.
That's assuming that Consecration could kill off the 1-2, which I think is not necessarily a conclusion that you can come to.
But outside of exactly Titanic Lackey, your opponent's not going to double Grim Rally this turn, right? That's a weird outcome.
Right, but what I'm saying is that Consecration, only 2 damage, even if they Grim Rally once, still buffs the Voidwalker out of range of Consecration.
Right, but then you can just Ziliax, swing your weapon at something else and wait till next turn.
Yeah, I guess. Then the Neverset Thrasher dies.
That's how I would do it.
Yes.
And what I mean is that's the backup plan for this,
Fair enough.
basically. This is obviously a little bit more annoying, but I don't think you can consider Titanic Lackey. I don't think you can go, I'm just going to change my play because he might have that one Lackey that annoys me.
And if you were to see Vulture, which is obviously something that Shaxy would have played, I think, had he had the ability to play it, Consecration and then swing to take out the Vulture probably works out well.
Yeah, I think this is...
I think it's still fine. I'm afraid that it was too greedy there from Ryvius when his hand and his deck that's so full of draw should just rely on removing as much every single turn.
Like, Consecration can be insane.
And I'm not even saying he should have played Consecration this
Right.
turn, even if he had swung last turn. I just think by swinging there, it means that nothing can go terribly wrong.
This is the spice right now. This is where Shaxy's going to say, let's mosey. Oh, that's just not bad.
Just fine.
And you could, ooh, dodge the weapon. Good! The Vulture and the Neverset don't then.
Yeah.
It's like, it's insane. Are we getting close to a point where Ryvius just plays Holy Wrath?
These cards, though, for Ryvius are not
the triple card drops.
bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Consecrate.
As soon as he finds himself just a timeout to buy him the extra time, Shavala later on as well. Like, if he can just survive to the point of Shavala, I think that Ryvius should be in a good spot.
A Shrink Ray would be pretty solid.
Absolutely.
If you just find the Shrink Ray,
Yeah.
then
But at the same time, Shaxy has the power of Zoo, the life
I
taps.
was going to say Zeus then. I was like, what?
Well, he kind of does the Unbound Elemental. That's kind of lightning-ish, I guess.
Huh. Took Grim Rally, wow.
Were you expecting Fiendish Circle?
Well, I wouldn't say
I wouldn't have hated it.
expecting, but
I wouldn't have hated it.
yeah, it wouldn't have been a bad one.
I think I prefer the Grim Rally, though. It's just this board and Zoo cards in general are at risk of being too low impact. You want to raise the damage.
He pushed.
I would have pushed face every time there.
Oh, 25.
Good enough. Absolutely good enough.
Oh.
Ryvius is getting there, man, and this draw, if he finds himself a Kangor to go with the Flash of Light...
What's not... Ah, my one-mana Neverset Thrasher. Oh, what a shame. Oh, wait, and now I can just kill it.
You gobble that up all day long.
Wait, what did he even draw?
I think it's
Shaxy,
Sinister
show us.
Deal,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so he can now just Grim Rally or Evil Genius.
Does he munch the 1/1 to get an extra damage face? Does he have that much disregard for his own health total?
I mean, he's just seen one Holy Wrath.
Apparently
Like,
so.
Ryvius literally does 0 damage to Shaxy, right? 0.
I guess so. I guess so, yeah.
He either gets Holy Wrath and he dies, GG, whatever, it's 17 cards in the deck, and there's only one Holy Wrath, or he wins.
It's every turn. Taking
Well, he doesn't
3
have to
damage
swing.
every turn.
He doesn't have to swing next turn, right? If he ever gets to like
But
3...
he doesn't have to swing next turn, then he would much rather have buffed the other minion.
But he gains the damage this turn and he might want to swing. What I mean is, if he gets to 3 health, he just doesn't swing with it. It's a taunt, so it has to be swung into.
I disagree with this from Shaxy. I think he's underestimating how quickly he's going to die. Because Ryvius, it's not even like Ryvius is going to deal damage to him. Ryvius is just going to stall, time out, Shrink Ray, heal, Shavala, all this nonsense.
Oof.
Shaxy, I think, if he wants to tap and swing with the Neverset every turn, he's dead in 2 turns.
This is some damage, though.
This is a lot of damage. This
Is
is
that 8?
razor thin.
That's 14 with
12,
Leroy.
14, yeah.
You can guarantee some juggles this turn as well and go for the Leroy next turn. Lackey into, you know, another Grim Rally on the Lackey. Adds an extra 3 damage to this turn.
This is so close, dude. So close.
Wow, those suck.
Yeah, those really suck.
2
Plague of
damage,
Flames,
though,
was
nothing
that
to
the
be sniffed
pig?
at.
Instead of Curse of Weakness?
It kills off Shivala without healing it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Curse of Weakness can like effectively negate a Chivalry if you just play it 4 times. And
It's
then
a
you
lot
just
of mana,
push
though.
face. It is a lot of mana, but
I don't
does
think
he
it
want to
matters.
destroy this whole board?
I don't
Is
think
he
it
going to destroy the
matters.
board?
Like,
I
I
don't
think he
think it
just
matters
picked a
too
card.
much.
No heal.
I hope you like my inventory.
Timeout. Oh,
Wait, you can clear the board. But
he can survive. He's alive at 1 health. And imagine if Shaxy had gone face instead of killing off the novice a few turns ago.
Yeah.
Right.
I think he needed to kill
Extra
the
points
novice.
of damage like that could have made the difference.
Wait, what? What can he even draw? Another abusive? Joey.
Maybe, but he hasn't found it.
Oh, I thought he was just gonna vulture tap. Because then you have
I
stuff.
thought so too.
Like what? Wait. Let me look. One abusive been played. Grim Rallies are gone.
Yeah.
I don't know what he was tapping for.
Direwolf, he wouldn't.
Direwolf wouldn't. He only had 1 mana spare. Oh,
He had
yeah.
2 mana. He had 2
He
mana.
had 2 mana.
So Direwolf was an
Direwolf,
elf.
okay. But that's it. 2 Direwolves and 1
Yeah.
abusive sergeant. There were 3 out of 3 out of like 15.
Yeah. Shaxy, this does not feel like the usual Shaxy to me that we've seen so far this game. I think it's just been small, sloppy things that have gotten the game away from
He
him.
should have just gone vulture. Maybe he thinks he's not getting enough time. But don't beat yourself up about it, Shaxy. Do your best. But I think he should have played vulture.
Yeah. He can play Nephicet, but you know what? If he swings with it at any point, he just dies. And this is why I was saying he should not make the Nephicet Thrasher.
Wait, what?
Because he can just die.
But if Ryvius plays timeout, Shaxy can play timeout and it never ends!
Yeah, like Christology, that's a nutty card for a Warlock to get.
What is life right now? And Ryvius has nothing. There's nothing he can do. And he's dead? If he doesn't-
Surely he's not just dead. What?
But what's he
What can
supposed
he do?
And Christology draws Shaxy.
The abusive sergeant.
Oh,
Even then, he
Warlock
can't
at
clear off
Cho.
all the damage he needs, right?
Cho, you've got a lot to answer for, mate.
Can he, is there any way he can draw all duplicates in his deck? Like, does Christology draw him?
Well, he would need to have 1-drops in his deck as duplicates, exactly.
Which I don't think there are any.
So he can do this.
He has to do this, right? I mean, sorry, he has to do this or assume there's no Leroy. And he's just assuming there's no Leroy.
Well, Shaxy
Oh.
takes it. Shaxy looks as
He
surprised
cannot
as we do.
believe it! How is Ryvius' hand that bad?
Wow, Leroy coming down, and there's the Direwolf. Just to remind everyone that it was there somewhere in the deck.
Yeah.
And Shaxy takes it, and I don't even know how to think or feel right now, Derek, because that... One, there was missed damage early on. I think that, you know, the funniest thing about that is the 1-1, the trade he did put the minion down to a 3-2,
Yeah.
but he just seen Consecrate. So you could have just completely ignored
Yeah,
everything.
yeah, yeah.
Nothing would have died.
I agree.
The True Self was gone, Consecrate was gone, and 1-ups at least. So
It was
anyway,
like Shrink Ray, maybe he was afraid of, but I don't care about that.
So there was 1 damage miss, which would have made this game a lot smoother for
Yeah.
Shaxy at least. But still, he went from it. I do think instead of tapping for the I think it was 3 out of 15, maybe 3 out of 16 chance, he could have just played Vulture Tap and said, well, you have got it or you don't. But yeah, that worked out pretty crazy. The show, I think... Is there any 1-drops he could have even drawn? No, right? His hand was just too bad. But I mean, like, there were no 1-drops in the deck that changed
One
the
attack.
outcome of
I don't think so.
that. Yeah, sorry.
The only thing I was considering is if there was a duplicate 1-drop, or
then
sorry,
it
a
can-
duplicate 1-attack minion,
they can
the only
separate.
one of which is Novice Engineer, which he'd drawn both of already. So I'm pretty sure Zephyrus could not have been activated had he played the Crystal.
Yeah, which means even, to be honest, the Cho didn't do anything, did it? It was just there as a minion that didn't really have an impact anyway, and Shaxy takes the win. Wow. crazy.
And there was a lot of stuff that I disagreed with on both sides there. Like, I still stand by that buffing up the Nephicet Thrasher was wrong, because taking up 5 damage every turn, it just means your sustainability is so much lower. Your ability to go into the late stage of the game and keep tapping is drastically lowered. You can't play Flame Imps at that point, you can't play another Nephicet Thrasher, like all that kind of stuff.
Do you think the Zoo is equipped to go late game versus Holy Wrath Paladin though? Because doesn't Holy Wrath Paladin just draw its deck and then go timeout, dead?
When I say late game, I mean like
Turn 7.
buys you 1 extra turn.
Right.
Like even if it buys you 1 extra turn of ability to throw stuff down on the board, maybe it gets there.
Okay.
But at the same time, maybe the 2 extra damage it got him on that 1 turn got him to the point where he could deliver lethal with Leroy. I don't know.
Crazy plays, crazy games all day here. We've got Frosty versus Alutimu.